What's the best camera for your live streams? In this video, we're going to jump into a few different options, talk about some options for best cameras, and help you decide which is going to be the perfect for your live videos. Hello and welcome. My name is Nick Polakowski, and here on this show, we talk all about live video and live video production. We talk a lot about some of the gear, some of the tips that will help, and techniques that will help you improve the quality of your live videos, as well as some of live video strategies. And I am very excited to be jumping into our topic here today. This show is brought to you in partnership with BeLive. So if you want to learn more about BeLive, head on over to nickpolkowski.com/BeLive. You can learn a little bit more about that platform there, and you can use that code for an extra little savings if you decide to subscribe to a BeLive account. But I'm very excited to be jumping into this topic, and I want to know just a little bit from everyone here watching. What camera are you currently using to live stream? Are you using your phone? Are you using the built-in camera on your laptop? Do you have a special webcam? Are you using a DSLR? I'd love to know what camera you're currently using for live streaming. And I love the fact that here this morning already we have some people joining in from all over. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks for saying hi. We have somebody watching from the Philippines. Ted, thanks for tuning in. Excited about that. Good morning, everybody. Excited to be jumping into this topic today. So really, today what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through a few different camera options, talk to you about some of the pros, some of the cons, and in order to help you decide which camera's going to be right for you. So without any further ado, I see we have some people talking about what camera they're using. I love it. And I'll be sure to be mentioning which ones I'm currently using as well as we go here along the way. But really the first thing I want to talk to you is about, we're going to jump through about 5 different categories of cameras and talk a little bit about what works best for people. And I love this. We have a bunch of people here already jumping in, talking about what they're using, including Fiji. Awesome. I love it. We have some Sony users with a HDMI adapter. Perfect. We're going to talk about some HDMI adapters and why you might want to be using those. Logitech Brio 4K. Excellent. That's an excellent webcam. I love that one there. Awesome. Great to see all of that this morning. First category of cameras I want to talk about, and I like to, especially since this is more of the tech show, it can quickly overwhelm people. So I like to always start with start where you're at. So your phone camera can be an amazing live stream camera. So that might be a great spot for you. That might be something to bring into your mix of live streaming cameras. And really, the reason I love just the straight phone for your live stream, and you could do this, say, using the BeLive mobile app. You could be live streaming directly from your phone with something like that, or you could be doing what we talked about in previous episodes, where you're actually using your phone as that webcam, using something like the Epoch Cam or Filmic Pro or something like that to bring your phone camera into your computer as that webcam. Lots of different options there. Definitely check out some of our previous episodes if you want to learn more about that. But one of the reasons I like the phone as that first initial camera for people to look at is because it's a great place just to get started. It can be very easy. It's likely something you already have. You carry it with you. And with live streaming especially, I want you to get started because you're going to learn so much just by going live on a regular basis, on a consistent basis. You're going to find out what works for you, what works for your audience. And it's just that perfect place. And it's always accessible. It's always with you. So you can go live really anywhere. It's very mobile. All of the other options we're going to talk about some of them can be mobile, can be used if you're traveling around, if you're in different locations. But the phone is the one that requires no extra gear in order to make that happen. This is something that you can be out in the woods, you can be out in a cornfield or at an expo, for example, when we're finally able to do more and more of those as those start coming back here. It could be something that you can take with you to really showcase different places. That's why I love this mobile option, and it's the one I just had to mention. And if you're at all able to, depending on how you're live streaming, either camera really works well, the front or the back. But if you can, definitely you try to use the back camera here because that's where you're going to get the best video quality from. And it's just going to a lot of times give you more options in terms of the quality of your image. So that's the phone. Like I said, as you can see, I'm an Apple user, so I'm a big fan of the iPhones, but there are lots of other options out there. And Ted, I love this comment here. I haven't fully read it, but yes, iPhones are great live streaming cameras from basic to advanced. I use my iPhone 11 with Filmic Pro for clean HDMI output via capture card. I do that a lot with this phone as well, especially if I just want to add that second camera. I'm actually working on a video for my YouTube channel about how I actually use the phone along with a slider to add a little extra movement and make the video more dynamic as kind of that second camera, almost that behind the scenes camera, where you just have that on a slow moving track, kind of looping back and forth. Works really well. I use the Rhino slider, the Rove. I love that option. So yeah, don't discount the phone as a great live stream camera, either as your main camera or as an additional one that you can add in several different ways. I love that. But let's move on to our next kind of category of cameras. So obviously, a lot of laptops and even some desktops come with built-in webcams. Generally, the quality of those is not great. Some of the newer ones are starting to have higher quality, which is nice. But most of the time, if in this next category, mention you get a standalone webcam. This is just the Logitech C920. I have had this camera forever, and it's a really high quality one. Really, any of the Logitech ones kind of in this brand, in that C9, they have other numbers now. The Brio, for example, somebody mentioned the Brio 4K on here. That is a great one. But yeah, I really like having these standalone webcams. What makes it nice is that generally these are relatively cheap additions compared to some of the other options we're going to be talking about. So generally, the cost is not going to be too significant, and still going to allow you to upgrade that camera. It's also really plug and play, and they're very easy to use. You just have to plug them in, and oftentimes your computer will switch automatically to something like this, or it'll be one click switching the camera, and it's something that it's very easy to learn, very easy to really use. So that's another really great reason for this webcam. They often offer a lot of versatility because generally they have nice long cables on them. You're going to be able to get well-framed shots. So you're going to be able to, rather than have that up the nose kind of shot or that kind of weird angles or have to stack your computer on several different books in order to get that eye level shot, you could have a tripod, mount that camera to that tripod and get it at the perfect eye level with really nice framing. Or you could use these as a nice secondary camera where it's showing behind the scenes, showing a top-down view. I like to do that sometimes with different depending on how we're setting up shots. Because that cable is fairly long, you can kind of get the cable out of the way and set up a really nice, easy to use top-down view for anything you want to display. Or if you have some close-up shots, a lot of times the autofocus on some of the nicer webcams is really good. So that will mean you can do some close-up shots if you need to in order to showcase something. That's a great way to use these webcams. Now, in terms of brands, I already mentioned Logitech, and kind of anything in that C line really is very good. Elgato is also, I've gotten to test this camera, or Elgato, or what's Corsair. I think they're kind of trying to rebrand, so I'm not exactly sure, but the Face Cam. I've gotten to use it a couple times, works really well. That would be a great one for you to also look into if you're interested in getting a webcam. So yeah, that's kind of web cameras. And I just want to check in a couple comments here and see what people are thinking. Yeah. So Ted, this is jumping back to our slider option. It works really cool. Like I said, I'm excited to do this video. I have a few different ideas of how to use sliders in your live streams and just different ways to add some nice variety and options. So be sure to check out the YouTube channel and subscribe for that. It's coming down the line. I've been working on it for a little while, but it's one of those videos that kept kind of getting pushed. And Jason, I completely agree. The iPhone is great. And yeah, I saw some of the new Macs have some really nice cameras in them. So I'm very excited about that, both their laptops and their iMacs. So that's going to be great to see that coming here really, really soon. Yeah. The C920 has been going really well for me for years. This camera, I want to say it might even be 10 years old. Like, it's probably getting close. Maybe not quite, but it's definitely been around for a while. Still works great. Yeah, the Elgato Face Cam. I'm glad to hear that some people are loving the Face Cam. It's great to hear that. I got to use it a couple times. Really like it. Don't have one here I can show you, unfortunately. But it's a really great product, and it looks really awesome. So I'm excited to hear people are liking those. But with all that, let's move on to our next option. And again, we've kind of, I don't want to say we've been moving from improving quality, but that's a little bit of what we're doing. Like I said, all of these can be really great quality if you get the right ones. And even I would recommend always keeping that phone in your option for cameras. But we're going to move up a step now here to using your DSLR camera as a webcam. So most of these DSLR camera manufacturers now have some sort of app or some sort of software that's going to allow you to basically plug a USB cable into your camera and plug it into your computer and you use it as a webcam. I love this. This is great. It's going to allow high quality cameras, high quality images just for more people, because they've reached back into a lot of their line and a lot of it works. This one specifically is one, if you are interested in this option, I really would look at a camera like this. This is the original M50 from Canon. So this one is great for this specific option because you can find them for pretty cheap, relatively speaking, used right now. And the reason I like using DSLRs as webcams is because the sensor is significantly higher quality than what you're going to get for a normal webcam. The image is just going to be really good. It's going to also allow you a lot of versatility, because all of these DSLRs, a lot of times you'll be able to take off lenses, change your lenses so you can get the shot that you want. This camera right here, we have the lens on it is really nice. It is a 50 millimeter lens, so it's a little bit of a tighter lens versus kind of the normal wide lens, which I've been using. I've been using a 35, but it also will stop down to, I think we're at an f-stop of 2 right now. It goes a little lower than that, but it's really great in terms of giving a lot of that nice blurry background effect. You're not going to get that from any of the other cameras that we've talked about previously. And if you do, it'll have to be like software, which you can usually always see some weird edging, even if with some of the best blurring software, background kind of software, which is why I like having an actual real DSLR camera as your webcam when you're able to. Now, let's talk a little bit about why. Well, first, I just also wanted to mention the other really nice thing about using a DSLR is because you still have a fully functioning camera as well. You still have a fully functioning DSLR camera that's going to take great images, that's going to record great video, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here when we're covering it a little further here down the road in this episode. The reason I like some of this as well is because, for example, the M50, you are able to find this refurbished right now for around like $450. This is, again, the original one, the Mark I. And that's because you can use this one because you don't need to worry about a clean HDMI out. So this version, if I were to plug an HDMI cable into it and plug it into a capture card, I would get all of the displays, all of the images, all of the settings and things like that on here. There's really no good way to still have, like, say, autofocus and some of those things without having that show up in your actual image on your live stream. And that's not what we want. We want, the nice clean image. The newer version does that, but because you're only plugging it into the HDMI, into the USB, you can get a clean image. It's going to be not as high quality resolution. That's why I have this slated in as our number 3 slot versus our number 4 slot. It's because the image resolution is going to be less quality than it would be if it was HDMI. But yeah, you can find the Canon M50 for around that $450, $500 used or refurbished on Amazon or out there in other places. So if you know you're not going to get a capture card and need to do HDMI and just want a nice camera that's good quality but still able to, say, film YouTube videos or something like that, this would be a great option right now because that new generation of M50s is out there. All right, let's see what people are saying. I saw a few comments rolling in. All right, someone wants to know, I'm looking at the M50 or, let's bring that up here. I'm looking at the M50 or the ZV-1. Which one do you use? I currently use the C920. So C920, great webcam. In terms of DSLRs, this was really one of my first big DSLRs that I got. This would be a great option for live streaming. This is the M50. Again, this is version 1. I want to say version 2, Mark II, if you want to possibly do, you just want to future-proof yourself a little bit more or know you're going to be using a capture card, then you'd want to look at version 2, which I want to say was around $750. I might be completely off on that, so be sure to look at actual pricing before you jump into that. But I like the M50s. I'm just generally a Canon shooter. That's kind of what I've had. That's what I've been using. So I've kind of stuck in that lane. So I don't have a ton of other experience with other camera brands, but there are a lot of really nice ones out there. So definitely check that out and try to figure out what is going to work best for you. Even if you have the ability, think about possibly even renting some cameras. You can rent a lot of these cameras from different stores. And yeah, you might, fork over a little bit of dough up front, but you're going to be able to figure out if that's the right camera for you, if that's the right lens combination for you. So it might be a good idea to test some of these things out if you have that ability kind of around you or access to that. All right, let's see what other people are saying here. All right, talking to Jason, love it. All right, I just want to throw this out there just since Dr. Elo seems to be knows a little bit more about the ZV-1 with the focus feature for bokeh is a great option. So there you go, somebody who is a Sony user. And that's one thing you're going to find. A lot of people will have different experience with different cameras. Mine's mostly Canon. So I'm just going to keep that out there. Awesome. We're just seeing a lot of people kind of chatting back and forth. That's great to see. Let me know if you do have any. I just want to make sure I'm very clear on this piece as well. The M50, but it's a Mark I that I got, so no clean HDMI. Yep, that is kind of the issue. If you know you're just going to be plugging it in with a USB cable, the Mark I, great option. If you potentially want to be using a capture card, again, capture card is going to be a little higher video quality, then you're going to want to go Mark II for that. But that actually brings us perfectly into our segue of let's talk a little bit about using something like a capture card with your DSLR camera. So first, let's talk just about why you'd want to do this. And well, first, let's talk about what is a capture card, because I'm sure there's some people here, we've been throwing that word around, don't necessarily know what that means. This is an example of a capture card. This is the Magewell. This is actually a SDI camera, a capture card, but same principles apply to an HDMI one. It allows you to plug your camera in on one end with an HDMI cable. Specifically, we're talking about DSLRs. That's what you'll be using. Plug in your camera on one end, and then it has a USB cable on the other end that attaches to your computer. And what this little box does is basically turns that output from your camera into an input for your computer. It allows your computer to see that camera, that HDMI feed as a camera, essentially, as a camera you can select in any software, any sort of, so you can select it with BeLive, you can select it in Zoom, in Teams, anything like that. You're gonna be able to select that camera as your webcam, essentially. The reason I like these capture cards, lots of them out there. Again, Magewell makes a lot of really nice ones. Elgato makes some. The A10 Mini Pro, I dove into some of these options in a past video, so go check some of those out if you're interested in learning a little bit more just about capture cards and going down that rabbit hole a little bit more. The reason I like a DSLR and a capture card is because really it is the highest quality. And it also, again, is going to allow you with a lot of variety of different looks because you're going to be able to change the lenses, kind of dial in that lens that's going to be perfect for your live streams. So if you want a really nice bokeh in the background, you're going to be able to do that. If you want a really tight lens, or if you want a really wide lens, you can find the right combination of lenses for you. It's going to work for your environments. And it's just going to give you a lot more variety in crafting the exact look that you want, that like a Logitech webcam or your iPhone just aren't going to be able to do. It just really gives you complete control of the image. You can adjust your f-stop, you can adjust your ISO, you can adjust everything to really dial that image into exactly how you want it to look. Like if you want it very shady and moody, you can crank that way. If you want to be very bright, very open, you do that way. If you want it to be very flat and not have any of that bokeh, you can make those adjustments very quickly, very easily with a DSLR camera using this option. So the other thing is you have a fully functional DSLR camera, like I mentioned in the previous one, which I love. So what am I using right now? That you might be wondering that. This is the option that I use almost all the time, unless it's for some very specific client ones, which we'll talk about that in a second. But right now I am using the EOS R from Canon with an A10 Mini Pro as my capture card. And a 50 millimeter lens, a 50 millimeter 1.8 lens from Canon as well. I love this option because, again, I can kind of dial it in, but then I also have this fully functioning, really great camera that I can use for YouTube videos. So I also do a lot of recorded and produced, edited YouTube videos. So having that ability to go back and forth, to plug it in, I have kind of a little station set up here it's basically my little YouTube station, or my little live streaming station, all on one C-stand with a light, some couple of different monitors, and a really nice setup that I can just plug that camera into, and it's ready to go. I can live stream for hours, or if I want to go make a recorded video, unplug it. It's good to go. It's very quick to set this up and take it down, and it just gives you lots of versatility. Plus, you're able to say, take your thumbnail shots on a camera like this. Really great option. Now, what are some of the downsides? Obviously, it is not very cheap to necessarily buy a really nice DSLR camera. Again, I have the EOS R. If you wanted to go, and I got this before like the R5 or any of those came out. So if you want to go a little cheaper option, the RP is actually really great for live streaming. It won't do some of the other functions that like something like the R or the R5 will do in terms of video and in terms of like slow motion and a few other things like that. But in terms of a live streaming camera, if you wanted a little bit cheaper, you could go, say, with the M50 Mark II. That could be a great option. But if you want to step it up even more and get a little nicer DSLR camera, I really do recommend that RP. I've gotten to use a decent amount of those, and they're really great. The other thing is you are also going to need a capture card. So that's, of course, the downside. You can buy an external one like a Magewell or A10 Mini Pro, or if you're using a desktop PC, you can get some capture cards that will plug directly, that can be built directly into the PC. So you have options and things there. But again, this is really the one that I think most of you are going to kind of aim for eventually as you really up your quality of live streaming gear and live streaming cameras. But again, I still use this a lot as well. So I always want to make sure to preface some of these things that, yes, get started with where you're at, but kind of know where you want to go. So you're not necessarily buying, a M50 to plug directly into your computer. If you know immediately you want to jump to something higher quality and jump to something even nicer camera. Like you don't need to buy a webcam if you know you want to get to this DSLR one, and you have the money where you can purchase something like this and use it as your webcam first before jumping into grabbing the capture card. Hopefully all that made sense. Let's see. I saw comments flying in, which I love. I just want to make sure I grab your question. Can you speak about the switches to use? So I think what you mean is like what sort of, I guess I'm not 100% sure I understand what your question is. You might want to clarify below in case I'm not talking about this correctly. But if you're talking about and we're not even necessarily talking about switching cameras here. I do have some other videos that talk about using multiple cameras in your live stream. Actually, that was the last video I did for this show, so you can go check that out if you want to learn a little bit more about like say the A10 Mini Pro, how to switch that way, or how to use BeLive to switch to multiple different cameras. That's in a previous video. Go check that out. Highly recommend that. I like, if you're looking for a hardware switcher, I like A10 Mini Pro. Now, if you're someone who's looking for a software switcher, you can add multiple cameras here in BeLive. I was just running it last week. It's a great way to, if you're just getting started, to kind of like dip your toe in some of this switching. Some of the switching software out there, there are a lot. You can go to very technical levels with some of these switching things. Personal software I use a lot for clients is Vmix. That's a really great one. It can be a little complicated. If you don't know what you're doing, it can take a little while to get up and running, but you can really do a lot with that. You can dial on into almost anything. So if you're looking for a software switcher, honestly, that's probably the one I recommend. Got to be on a PC. Got to have a powerful enough PC. But if you're just getting started, I recommend either going with a hardware one like the A10 Mini Pro, or jumping in and just connecting multiple cameras in BeLive. Awesome. I just want to mention this comment here. Just changed from my webcam from Logitech C920 to the Brio, the HD Brio, and the quality difference is dramatically different. That's great to know. Love to see that. All right. EOS M200 has clean HDMI as well for $550 brand new. That's a great option as well. Again, I tend to be more Canon line. They have a lot of really great options. If you're looking to do a capture card, remember you need to also purchase the capture card, but also make sure it has clean HDMI out. And again, think about renting some of these first if you're just going to start testing some of it. All right. When you're using an external camera, would you need a second person to control? Absolutely not. It can take a little bit of practice if you're just getting started. But if you're using an external camera, you can definitely dial in the settings. You can kind of get things dialed in before you jump on camera and just have all the settings kind of locked, or you can use something like, you can use autofocus or just some of the auto settings initially until you kind of learn a little bit more about your camera. But you definitely don't need a second person. Honestly, for clients, because this is what I do, kind of the live stream production for bigger events, generally in-person events. There's been times where we've had 5, 6, 7 cameras, and I'm able to control it all by myself, kind of sitting here behind the scenes. I tend to not be in front of the camera during those times, but there are times where I'm in front of the camera as well as controlling multiple cameras. It takes a little bit of setup, a little bit of practice. Maybe that'll be a topic for a future video. But yes, you definitely don't need a second person to run an external camera. I want to thank you, whoever said that. I don't have your name, but thank you. I'm glad you like the shot. It definitely a decent amount of gear, but I'll break down in a future video, do a full breakdown of what this setup is. If you want to learn something similar to my current setup, you can see a video about my old studio on my YouTube channel. So that might be a great spot if you want to learn a little bit more about it, but it's not exactly this setup. This setup has improved, I think. So you can go check that out at my YouTube channel here, nickbolkowski.com/YouTube. All right, let's hide this. And we're going to roll through a couple. We're running out of time here. Love to see all the comments. I will definitely jump back in and answer some of these comments, but I actually have one more category of cameras that I want to talk to you about. This one is going to not necessarily be right for most people, but there are a few of you out there that it might be. So I wanted to be sure to mention it because I do love these cameras and this camera category in general, but specifically this brand. And what we're going to be talking about is a PTZ Optics camera. So if you don't know what that is this guy right here. This is PTZ Optics. It's a brand. PTZ Optics is a brand of PTZ cameras. PTZs are pan, tilt, and zoom. So, and you're just going to see the start on part here, but basically these cameras can pan, tilt, and zoom. You can control it all robotically. You can set different set shots. So really what a PTZ Optics camera, allows you to do is to set many, many different shots from a single camera, because you have the ability to pan, tilt, zoom. You can dial in your exact shots. These are the type of cameras that I will use a lot for big shows, big events, and things like that, where there are people on stage. I want to be able to follow them on stage. I want to have certain set points, and I can use one camera to, say, have 5 different shots. Many, many more than that. You can have basically an infinite number of shots with something like this. But it allows you that variety. It allows you to zoom in on specific points, but also get those wide shots. This has a 20 times zoom. They're really great options if you are, say, going to be doing something like that in person, where you're videoing conferences, or if you have a set studio. This also could be great to add you that variety. If you want to have multiple different sets within your studio, or even I'll oftentimes use one PTZ camera with an interview and then one normal camera. If we have a 2-person interview, the PTZ camera will allow me to get just kind of a wider shot, kind of a different shot, but then it'll also allow for different focuses on the 2 interviewees. So we can switch back and forth. I do also always want to have a second camera when I'm using a PTZ camera, just because it doesn't necessarily switch from preset very smoothly. So it can be very jerky for people if you're jumping from shot to shot. So I usually will have a wider shot in order to kind of switch through while I transition the shot on the PTZ camera. So definitely recommend checking those out. They're really great and high quality cameras. Again, PTZ Optics is my favorite brand of them, but there are many, many other ones out there. This is not one that's going to be great for everybody, but that's one of the reasons I like this camera, is because it allows you that versatility for those people that this is right for. If you're doing a shot like this, probably don't need a PTZ camera, because they're not necessarily cheap, but they are really great, high quality. And image quality is actually very good. I would say it's not quite as good as something like this setup here with a DSLR capture card and very specific lenses, but it is really good. I will say people are not going to necessarily be complaining, especially in that event type space. High quality option to really check out. Yeah, love RoboCams. I love seeing that there. Awesome. Well, we are running out of time here for the show, and so hopefully these 5 kind of camera ideas are a good place for you to get started, and hopefully that this kind of gives you a nice jumping off point. There are a lot of options out there, and honestly, these are some of the ones that I recommend, that I've used. But really what it comes down to is I just want you to get started live streaming. So grab your phone, grab the built-in webcam on your computer, whatever it is, and just get started live streaming, because that's how you're going to really improve. That's how you're going to get more comfortable, and that's how you're really going to grow. So there are many, many camera options out there. Find one that's going to work for you. Test it out. Find that great deal. And play around with it a little bit, but don't just, I want to make sure I gave you some of these options because I don't want you to just waste money on trying all kinds of different things that might not be right for you. So hopefully this helps you kind of narrow down on the perfect camera for you. Be sure also, if you haven't done so already, to go check out BeLive. This is great. They're a partnership with this show, helping bring this show to more and more people. So be sure to go check out BeLive if you haven't. Great platform that's going to allow you to reach more people, to really grow your live streaming audience in a really cool way with a lot of great options. So go check that out. And I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk much more about live streaming. So see you then.